All right, welcome to Notebook Summaries. Today, we are jumping right into our quick country history series with a look at the complex, powerful, and absolutely fascinating story of Nigeria. So get ready. We're going to cover thousands of years of history, from some of the most sophisticated ancient cultures you can imagine to the rise of massive empires. We'll see how lines drawn on a map by colonizers created a new nation, and how that nation has been fighting to find its soul ever since. First up, ancient foundations. And this is so important because the story of this land doesn't start when Europeans show up, not even close. It goes back thousands and thousands of years, with incredibly complex societies rising and falling. I mean, just look at this timeline for a second. We're talking about the Dufana canoe, which is the oldest boat ever found in Africa, all the way back in 6300 BC. Then you have the Nok culture emerging, the stunningly detailed Igbo Ukwi bronzes, and the golden age of the Ife Empire. This was a place of constant innovation. And what's really amazing is the sheer variety of what these civilizations accomplished. The Nok people, they weren't just making beautiful terracotta art. They were some of the earliest iron smelters in West Africa. You have the kingdom of Nurai, the spiritual heartland of Igbo culture. The Ife Empire was so advanced they were paving their roads and making intricate glass beads. And of course, the Benin and oil empires, which became military and political powerhouses, known for that world-famous bronze work. Okay, so that brings us to our second chapter. This is when two massive external forces arrive and completely change the game. You've got Islam coming down from the north across the desert, and European ships arriving on the coast from the south. And this really created two different worlds in the same region. Up north, the trade routes across the Sahara brought Islam, leading to these huge, powerful land empires like Kanem-Bornu, and later the Sokoto Caliphate. Meanwhile, down south on the coast, the first contact is with Portuguese sailors, and that trade, which started in things like palm oil, quickly, tragically became all about the transatlantic slave trade, turning ports like Lagos into centers of a horrific global business. And just to put this into perspective, we're not talking about small tribes. The Sokoto Caliphate was one of the largest states in Africa. It was a massive, organized Islamic empire. But, and this is a crucial part of the story, by the late 1800s, it also had the largest slave population anywhere on Earth, with people forced to work mostly on plantations. So this leads us right into the British colonial era. And it's a story that, believe it or not, kind of starts with the British trying to stop the slave trade, but ends with them conquering the entire region and forcing it all together into one colony. And let's not mince words here. This was a violent conquest. This quote from Frederick Lugard, one of the main British figures, makes that crystal clear. Their expansion wasn't some peaceful agreement. It was made possible by superior firepower, especially the new Maxim machine gun, which was just devastating against anyone who tried to resist. And that all leads to this one single pivotal year, 1914. This is the moment the British took their northern territory and their southern territory and just mashed them together, creating the single entity of Nigeria. The borders were drawn for their own convenience, with zero thought given to the hundreds of different ethnic and religious groups now stuck inside them. Now, to control this new, massive colony, the British used a strategy called indirect rule. In the north, they just propped up the existing emirs, which worked for them. But in the south, where societies were often organized differently, they basically had to invent chiefs, calling them warrant chiefs. This created this huge imbalance of power and just deepened that growing divide between the north and the south, setting the stage for disaster. And that brings us to maybe the most tragic chapter in Nigeria's history. The moment of independence, when all those divisions that were papered over by the British just exploded into a terrible, terrible conflict. The whole thing just unraveled so quickly. Independence in 1960 creates this shaky federation. Political tensions boil over. Then in January 1966, a coup led mostly by Igbo officers kills key leaders from the north. Just 6 months later, northern officers stage a counter-coup, which is followed by horrific massacres of Igbo people living in the north. As hundreds of thousands of refugees fled back to their homeland in the east, their leader felt they had no choice but to secede, declaring the independent Republic of Biafra, and that's when the Civil War began. The human cost it's just staggering. The number of people killed in combat was huge. But it was nothing compared to the number of people who died from hunger and disease. The Nigerian government blockaded Biafra, leading to a catastrophic famine. It's estimated that somewhere between 1 and 3 million civilians, most of them children, starved to death. It was a global humanitarian crisis. You would hope that after the war ended, things would get better, but they didn't. Instead of peace and democracy, Nigeria plunged into a long, dark era of military dictatorships that would define the country for nearly 30 years. Just look at this timeline. It really shows you the absolute chaos of the era. It's just a relentless cycle of coups. Power wasn't decided at the ballot box. It was taken by force again and again. This wasn't an age of politics. It was an age defined by the bullet. And the absolute low point of this whole era came under the dictator General Sani Abacha. His regime was known for being incredibly brutal, but also for corruption on a scale that is just hard to comprehend. He and his friends are thought to have stolen as much as $5 billion from the country. $5 billion. And governments are still trying to track down and recover that money today. Finally, after Abacha died in 1998, Nigeria began its transition back to democracy. This new era, starting in 1999, is called the Fourth Republic. But, as we're about to see, getting rid of the military wasn't a magic fix for the country's deepest problems. You see, all those challenges facing Nigeria today, they're a direct echo of its history. The religious and ethnic tensions, the systemic corruption, the conflict over oil wealth, none of that just vanished when democracy returned. And underneath it all is that same fundamental question that's been there since 1914. How do you build one unified nation out of all this incredible and sometimes conflicting diversity? But here is the thing. That is not the whole story. Because despite everything, Nigeria is also a story of unbelievable resilience and creativity. It's an economic and cultural giant. Nollywood is the second largest film industry on the planet. Nigerian music and fashion are taking over the world, and its tech scene in Lagos is exploding. And that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? Nigeria is a true giant, brimming with energy and potential. The question is, can it finally overcome the deep, painful divisions of its past to build the kind of unified, prosperous future that its people so clearly deserve? We really hope this explainer gave you a better understanding of this incredible country. If you found it interesting, please check out the rest of our Quick Country Histories playlist. And of course, subscribe to Notebook Summaries for more deep dives like this one. Thanks so much for watching.